Welcome to the Adventure Mechanics. I'm Chandler,
I'm Devin.
I'm Tom.
and today we'll be talking about one of the older games that we played in high school called Or no Ryomi 2.
What the game is, it's basically a how do you describe this game? It's really strange. It's a rush game, I guess, in the regard that like the whole mechanic of the game is that you're like trying desperately to keep up with like far too many tasks, and plan out your time really carefully in running a restaurant. So you're making food and pouring beers and trying to take care of customers and dispose of the trash and keep the place from burning down and catching burglars and all sorts of stuff. And it's all happening kind of all at the same time, and you're desperately trying to do these really intentionally clunky controls, which makes it really hard. And so I think the plot, what makes the mechanic fun is that you're like, there's almost no way to do it all at once and actually keep up.
Yeah, it's definitely like if you've ever played WarioWare, except for the entire game just doesn't stop. It's a day's worth of WarioWare. All those mini games, you're just like, I gotta do this real quick. I think I know what I'm doing, and it's done. Okay, on to the next one. Oh no, that pile of things to do is getting really big. Oh god.
And it kind of almost in a way, this is a little bit of a stretch, but it sort of reminds me of like Surgeon Simulator, where like the whole point of that game is that the controls are just really clunky. And so you feel really awkward, like you don't know what you're doing, and you're kind of like it's hard, like too hard. Or no, Ryomi has some of that going on, where basically every single thing, like every part of every dish, is like a different, separate button on your keyboard, and they're not traditional buttons. So you're hunting all over the keyboard the entire time, trying to figure out which buttons you need to do for each task. And you can practice and you can get better at it, but it's a lot.
I'll, I'll be honest, Orno Ryomi 2 got me into typing properly with knowing where to put my fingers on the home row as fast as physically possible so I could do the tasks faster.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's not a good thing, but that's how it happened.
That is so funny.
But yeah,
I definitely did just take on like this and is completely deranged, insane hand placement so that I can hit, the disposal and hit 4 on the numpad for beer pouring and like all sorts of stuff just so I can keep up.
yeah. For those that don't know, this was a game built on the Game Maker engine. Yes, that Game Maker engine is from way, way back. And it was a sequel to a game that was inspired by another game. Confusing, I know. Why don't we go into the history of this game? Or no Ryomi and its sequel that we're actually talking about, Or no Ryomi 2, were inspired by a game called Or no Ryori, which is My Cooking in Japanese, and it was actually a game released in 1999 as a demo that the developers for Or no Ryomi played, the developers being Vertigo Games or Vertigo Gaming, depending on when they were making games at the time. But they were so fascinated by it that they wanted to make a full game out of it. And after playing on this demo disc, looked around and didn't see anything like it. But yeah, so they looked around, tried to figure out what games were like this, couldn't find anything, and then they kind of just made it themselves using, for the first game, artwork from Or no Ryori, and then for the second game, kind of making their own artwork, but still using other art and music assets from other IPs at the time as well. So this game was never actually sold for that reason, because, using other people's IP is a big no-no, at least when you're trying to sell a game. And they wanted to make money off of it, so they ended up doing an Or no Ryomi, 3, which eventually got scrapped and turned into the Cook Serve Delicious series, which has Cook Serve Delicious 1, 2, 3, and coming sometime in 2023, probably, cook, serve, delicious forever. So this is a long-lived game, and this is just kind of the super cliff notes of it. But that's the initial history of this game.
And Chandler and I's history kind of began in high school. Probably what, 2005 is when we started playing this game?
Uh, 2004, 2005, something like that.
Yeah, so I wasn't even aware that they had branched off and gone from or no Ryomi to anything until much later, and I saw a game that was kind of similar and thought, oh, that's kind of fun. That reminds me of or no Ryomi, and so I think I sent you a link to it and was like, check this out. This kind of brings back some memories, and I think you were the one that was like, yeah, that's the same developer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been
So
keeping an eye on Vertigo games for quite some time, just because I loved Or no Ryomi so much. It was released in 2004, by the way. I don't think I said that out loud. For Or no Ryomi 2, released in 2004. One of the things about the game is you can kind of tailor it to the difficulty level that you want with how many items you put onto your menu. Because every menu item ends up being a mini game, like a WarioWare mini game. I'll be referencing that a lot as a side note. Because it feels exactly as frantic. Exactly
yeah,
as frantic. So you can kind of adjust the difficulty to your taste. And it's not saying this chaos is going to be manageable, but you can at least have some illusion of control of how much chaos you can tolerate.
yeah. I try to play on the simpler side because even on the simple side, it's pretty overwhelming
Yeah.
in a good way. It's a weird thing, Devin. I think you what did you say about that?
About which?
The stress, but it's good stress.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me that. Yeah, we chatted a little bit before we started recording. I had something to say about that. Where my history with this game is basically very recently when Chandler and Tom were like, "Hey, we should talk about this for the podcast," and then I played it because I had no idea about it at all.
Oh, we're sorry.
And it was just sort of like, so I learned the history and everything, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll try this out. This relic of a bygone era. It was interesting because I have very bad coordination. It doesn't even matter what the game is. My coordination real bad. So I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful. Oh my God, there's so much going on. And then of course doing the rookie mistakes of like hamburgers and salads, which take a lot of key presses and a lot of coordination, which did not work well. But my thought on it was sort of like, like this is stressful, but there's somewhere in like, the graph or like, the matrix of data for stress that like this kind of stress, it's like I feel stressful, it's like, oh my God, I want to succeed and I want to do well, and what the hell, why can't I hit the button correctly where the beer pour is correct? But at the same time it's kind of like fun. It's like a fun stress, and I think that the way that the game is put together has a lot to do with that, like with like the kind of the goofy graphics, the MS Paint
Oh, the
artwork.
graphics are like
And
horrendous in the best way.
oh yeah, in the best way. And then of course, the music choices that are used, and all the music comes out of other properties. But the Rush Hour music, particularly, which comes from Chicken Run, an animated movie from a long time ago. It's like it's fun and exciting and kind of like triumphant music. And like it's not stressful music, right? Where like you could easily put in music there that makes you feel stressed.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes you feel awful for doing such a bad job, but the music choice is something that's like more upbeat, and it's frantic. There's a hurry to it, like you want to rush, like with all the people coming in, like asking for their beer and their burgers and their salads and their pizza and whatnot. But it feels better than like, oh my God, I feel so stressed and I just want to put this game away and never look at it again. It's sort of like, I will conquer it this time. I did a really bad job and everyone's really mad at me and I don't have any money. Oh, whoops. But you feel kind of fun about it. You kind of look forward to the Rush Hour. I mean, I do anyway because the music's
yeah.
so fun.
Oh, totally.
It's like I have things to do, and it's like a lot to do, but the music is fun. Like it makes it fun.
It's dread and excitement at the same time. It's like, oh man, things are gonna get really frantic, and that's when the most fun is had because you're just like, I can't do it all.
Yeah.
And yet
Yep.
at the same time, like, I don't know, it's the right amount of time too. The rush hour is like just long enough where you're frazzled, but you're not like I want this to end. Like, the time it ends, you're like,
Yeah.
whew, okay, that was fun. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm back into my normal routine. We're good.
And it feels good too, like when you happen to like make a few, like, you know, when you're in that rush zone, and you happen to do a few things like correctly, and it's like, perfect, perfect, perfect. You know, you're like, yeah, I did it. No, I failed that one. Shit. Oh well.
Yeah, there's a very quick reset on everything because it's all mini games, and it kind of feels like a workout where like you have the peaks that you work really hard, like super hard, try harding for like 30 seconds, and then you kind of go down in the amount of intensity that you put into your workout. And then it happens again later in the workout where you're doing that 30 seconds of hard, and then you take a little bit of a down intensity.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel when playing it. Of course, this game also gives me jitters if I play too much. So
Yeah. I imagine it's not something you want to like, you know, play for big long stints. But to your workout example, that's also true with like, you know, the music works there too when you're doing your workout and you're like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm ready to be done, and then like your song comes on and you're like, yeah, all right,
let's do this.
3 more minutes.
Right.
Let's do it. We're just gonna go all out for 3 minutes and then I can be done. Yeah, very very similar, very very similar vibe.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the music direction in this game, although using other IP for their base, actually was really well put together. Like starting it off with the Mambo from what was it? I see it where the green things with with Eddie Murphy. Green
The Flubber
Flubber.
Me remake.
Oh, yeah.
Flubber remake. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts with the Flubber music, like the Flubber Mambo to get into the game. And since this is an old game, the sound balancing isn't great, and it will play
It is not good.
really loud your first
There's
time.
no settings to change it.
Yeah, so you just get blasted with the Mambo, and it's like, oh, this is the type of game we're playing. And I have zero regrets about installing this every time.
Oh yeah, it takes up no space on my hard drive, so I'm convinced that it's going to be on my computer for the rest of time, because why not?
Why not?
Sometimes you just have to have your ears blasted out. It's great.
And it is, it's weird. I didn't expect to enjoy it. There are so many games that I have played from like the past, especially that time period of my life, where I'm like, oh man, that was such a good game, and then I go back and I play it and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
This isn't one of them. This is one of those where you load it up and you're like, oh, this is going to be a disaster, because the graphics are so bad and the music is super badly balanced and like all these things that are like pointing you in the direction of like, no, you should have left this one in the past, man. And then you start playing it and you're like, huh, I'm having a blast. I'm having so much fun. So yeah, it totally holds up. Definitely go play it. It also costs nothing.
Yeah, well, they can't sell it for
Right.
obvious reasons too, but like absolutely
But it
play
costs
it.
nothing.
I'm just saying, it's worth
Yeah.
every penny.
You're so
Yeah.
kind.
And on the note of the graphics, I do have to say, like, the one thing that just gives me conniptions is, you know, you see the restaurant, and there's the doors, and then there's the windows, and then there's kanji signs next to the door. And the kanji read Nihongo, which is Japanese, like the Japanese language. Like, it just says Japanese language. Like, right, and it just gives me conniptions every time I look at it. It's just... like, why?
I think it's
Why
so
does it
perfect.
say that?
I mean, the fact that this game was made in the early 2000s, and like that is the time when everyone was getting just random Japanese kanji like tattooed on their arms. Like, I feel like it's perfect though. Like,
Yeah, no, I think it's perfectly placed, and it's one of those things that I wonder. I was like, you know, is that
Is it
random
intentional,
or is it intentional?
Yeah.
Like, did the developer know? Did they put that in there on purpose? Just to know, knowing that people who could read it would just be like, okay, why? For what reason?
my headcanon is that they did know what they were doing. I don't know that that's actually
Yeah.
true, but like it feels intentional.
Yeah, it just feels so distracting. It's just like, what? Why? Why that? It's not even a Japanese restaurant. What's going on?
I'm selling beer and fries. I don't understand.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
This is a Wendy's.
Yeah.
Ah,
And the MS Paint cashier is just chef's kiss perfection of early
yep.
2000s not giving a fuck about your job.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
If I've
100%.
ever seen him.
And it's perfect when you get the tip jar.
Yeah.
Like you just his expression and then the chip jar like just to the right is so funny to me.
Yes. Especially
Yeah, like,
because all of the characters look kind of like they were drawn by, like, I don't know, a 10-year-old, but like in a charming way, but not an intentional, not like a this is a cute animated, movie and we're going to make the 10-year-old character draw something and it's going to be cute. It's like clumsy 10-year-old,
it
It's
which
very talented 10-year-old to be
makes it
drawing with a mouse and MS Paint in the
right,
early aughts.
but it's pretty clumsy and in a way that's somehow endearing. I don't I like it is what I'm saying. It's bad,
It
but it's
wouldn't be
bad
it
good.
wouldn't be the same it wouldn't be the same thing without the polish though, right? Like
Oh,
I mean
totally.
if it had all this polish and like the art was really good, it just wouldn't have the same charm. It would feel completely different.
I
I
mean-
think like how rough around the edges it is in many different ways, including the art style, like really gives it its charm.
Yeah,
You're
that's
willing
part
you're
of the
willing to
magic.
forgive it some weird controlled decisions because it's like, well, this person spent a lot of time in MS Paint drawing these characters.
and it was kind of part of the game maker scene at the time. Like, yes, I did spend a fair amount of time there because, surprise, surprise, I ended up being a game developer even before I figured out I wanted to be doing that as a hobby. But, like, the entire scene for Game Maker at the time was very much, hey, we're all trying out these weird and crazy things, and some people had more art skill, and it showed in their games, but their games tended to be a lot simpler because their skill wasn't in the coding portions. And then you would have games like Orno Ryomi 2, where they're a blast, but the artwork is programmer artwork, let's say.
Right. It looks
and
like
it
I
shows.
drew it.
Yeah, which, let me tell you, there is actually artwork that we have that is something that Tom drew for a game that we were designing at the time that we were playing Orno Ryomi. So,
That's
yeah,
true.
can confirm his artwork does look like this.
I resent and also resemble that remark.
Well, Orno Ryomi is such a fun game, and even their commercial versions that they came out with for Cook Serve Delicious 1, 2, 3, and upcoming Forever do have polish to it, but it still keeps the card look to them, for lack of a better phrase. Like, everything feels like it's a drawing on a popsicle stick bouncing, which is kind of fun. I don't know. It just feels that way to me, and I absolutely adore that as a way of making your game feel better without actually putting a huge amount of additional artwork effort into it. So, like, two huge thumbs up of you leveraging what you got, which in this case is probably more coding skill than artwork skill. But
Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents.
That's
on
totally
that.
the charm of it. It's like Devin said, if the artwork was really good, the game would feel different. I when we first started playing this, I still have a memory of this when you showed me Orno Ryomi the first time. And of course, a first impression of a game is really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you fired it up and I saw that artwork, I was like, "What the hell are you showing me?" Like, there's no way that this game is going to be good. Look at that drawing. Wow, that's bad, dude. And then we started playing it, and I think the unexpected fun that I had playing it and the total subversion of my first impression is part of why I fell in love.
I mean, perfectly fair. Like, it is very hard to look at if you're used to having games look better than refrigerator artwork.
It's kind of like a pug, you know? You see a pug and you're like, "My God, what is that thing?" Like the first time. I'm not saying like most people know what it looks like, but when you're a kid, surely you saw a pug for the first time and your reaction was not, "Aw," it was like, "Holy hell, what happened to your dog?" But then it slowly goes from that point to like, pugs are the cutest dogs on the planet.
You're the most adorable abomination ever.
That's what Orno Ryomi is. It's like you see the artwork and you're like, oh, memories. At least that's me.
I don't think people are going to be like, memories if they haven't played the game. Just saying.
Look, man, you got to make memories to have memories, all right? Maybe not the first day they do it, but it's going to happen after they play it.
It does certainly evoke, the early aughts, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
there's something about it, even if you haven't played it before, you just look at it and you go, oh yeah, like I remember stuff like this being around all the time
Yep.
when I was in, high school and stuff.
Yeah, it was a wild time in indie game design for sure. Like,
Oh yeah.
Game Maker opened up a huge opportunity for people that wanted to design games but didn't necessarily want to do the low level coding that was required at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically you could build a game, but you'd have to know C, C++, Java, and build everything from scratch from there. And then Game Maker kind of was already there, but kind of developed a little bit more. And then we had an explosion of weird games like Orno Ryomi come out, and I think the world is a better place for it.
Oh yeah. I actually
So,
think Orno Ryomi very well may be the first indie game I ever played in my entire life.
really?
I think so. I can't think of anything earlier than that.
Oh, that's sad. I remember playing a lot of smaller games online at the time, but this was the one that I kept coming back to because it's just so damn weird and so damn enjoyable. So, Orno Ryomi, the first one, had artwork from the Orno Ryori game and didn't include other tasks that you could do. Like, Orno Ryomi 2 is, in my opinion, a fuller game because they added more to the menu and they added other things to it, like the challenges, like Iron Chef, which I think actually uses the sound effect from Futurama, I own a cookie, in it. So, it has more of a game to it. So, if you're going to try it, absolutely try Orno Ryomi 2 before going back to Orno Ryomi, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is such a fever dream of a game, and I love it. Just everything that came out of it was probably nostalgic for me in the weirdest way, because who wants to play a WarioWare game that isn't multiplayer, where you're just trying to survive as long as possible with the biggest menu you can possibly get and somehow make it through the day? I guess it just hits me on a number of levels. This is how work felt like when I was in high school, sort of thing. But
Right?
it's a great game, and it deserved to be turned into a full franchise, honestly, from my opinion. And of course, this is pulling back the nostalgia lenses, but it does play very differently from anything else at the time
Oh
that I
yeah.
remember.
When I think we tried to play Cook Serve Delicious, and it's Orno Ryomi 2 is distinctly different from Cook Serve Delicious. I don't know. I think that series is probably pretty good. I haven't invested a lot of time into it, but Orno Ryomi 2 has a simplicity and a franticness that makes it a little bit more special in my mind. That might also be the nostalgia speaking.
I mean, fair, but yeah, I feel like hitting the minigame frenzy was just chef's kiss perfection.
Totally.
Or no Ryomi 2. And I could see why the developer was like, hey, I loved this demo of Orno Ryori, and nothing's around that'll do this. I gotta make a game for it. I empathize on a very, very base level for that. There's just some games that you're like, I need more of this. But not the whole game, but just this little sliver in particular that I just have to develop into a full game.
Yeah.
And I feel like they did a very good execution of it when they hit Orno Ryomi 2.
Well, and the proof is in the pudding. That went from a little idea and a hobbyist to they're proper developers now. So it
And
worked.
they have been since let's check for let's see. Yeah, they've been developing for a long time now, so you can tell it's their passion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, any other thoughts on this one in particular?
Go play it.
Uh,
It's free.
Yeah.
it's free. I'm really glad. I'm really glad that it exists, and you can still find it. You know, it still is around. I feel
Yeah.
like that's a rarity. I think with old media from I say old media like yeah, it's 20 years ago. The early aughts. But it's a rarity to find things that are that old and still around and easy to access and use. So I think that's very special.
It's honestly
That it
one of the only games from that time period that I can just straight up install on a Windows 10 machine with no problems at all,
yeah,
which
Which
is
is
wild.
impressive.
which is
Yeah.
wild. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but I think that's very special that it exists and people who didn't experience it, back when, like you guys did, like you can experience it now and see. And if you like Cook Serve Delicious, you can see the beginnings of that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the other amazing things about it. Like, they, Vertigo Gaming actually cared enough to keep this on their servers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have to. There's not a whole lot from my early game dev period that I would really want to show to people, but like this is something on their list of games that they have in their stable of history, right? And they
Mm.
absolutely are being true to the community by saying, yes, this is something that we made. It's not the greatest, but here it is still. And that's huge. Like, you don't see that coming from game developers very often. Like,
Yeah,
once a game's out the door and you're not supporting it anymore, you don't really care about what happens to it.
yeah,
And maybe this is because the developer, I think he goes by Chewigans, actually had so much fun making it. And it does show. Like,
yeah, yeah,
everything's MS Paint and looks absolutely trashy, but it's so well executed. And yeah, if this was in my stable of games, I would definitely keep the availability of it, but that's just me.
Oh yeah, that's so little.
yeah,
It's worth keeping in the on the computer just to revisit every year or two. Who cares?
Right? Yeah, and
yeah.
or as I've been pointing out multiple times, this is did develop into a full development studio, and they do still make games, and they're still pretty open about talking about some of the old games that they made too. So like, if you end up finding a developer like that, absolutely reach out and talk to them, because I don't know many developers that don't want to talk about the games they've made.
Oh yeah.
And as long as they're open about it, fuck yeah, like huge thumbs up. This was one of the easier things to research as a side note, because one, I lived through it. Two, the developer's pretty open about it. And three, it's still available and works on a Windows 10 machine without any sort of emulation, which is huge.
That is huge. There's a lot of AAA games that I love, like for instance Fallout 3. Yeah, that's a nightmare to get running on a Windows 10 machine.
Right? Just how they got this to be so good without doing that is a testament to the engine they were using,
Oh yeah.
honestly.
This is somewhat unrelated, but just as a fun little, side note about this game. Back when we first started playing this, I actually got into a fairly significant argument with my stepdad over this game because I was playing it and I was playing it on the family computer because at the time I did not have my own. And he walked in and I was showing him, I'm like, yeah, check this game out, and I'm like frantically pounding on the keyboard to do all the different commands. And my
Mm-hmm.
stepfather freaked out. He was so mad at me because he's like, you're going to break the keyboard. And he and I got into like a big fight over the fact that he was convinced that this game was going to destroy his keyboard. And he forced me to uninstall the game off of the family computer.
That's hilarious.
So, if that gives you some idea of how frantic you can be in this game, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. And if you play it on a mechanical keyboard and you have roommates, I'm so very sorry. Yeah, because mechanical keyboards can be loud, and you will be very frantically smashing those keys,
Oh,
guaranteed.
definitely. If you're playing it properly.
I would, I would absolutely love to see somebody try not to be frantic playing this game.
Seriously, though. Yeah.
I struggle to think of how that would work. Maybe like a StarCraft competitive player might be able to do everything without like panicking, but it's designed to be stressful and panic inducing by design, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a great game because like you're not doing the same thing for more than 3 to 5 seconds. It definitely feels like a WarioWare game or a Mario Party thing, except with all the other bits chopped out. Like there's no board or anything like that. You just have the list of mini games that are popping up, whether you like them or not. It's great.
And I think we also missed one other thing that we have to bring up. If you do succeed at this game and you play it long enough, you get a reward. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. Do you remember what it was called? Where you get invited onto a quote-unquote TV show in the game?
Oh, I think it was like a parody of Iron Chef.
Yes.
I don't remember it because I don't usually play that long to get to it, to be honest. Like,
I remember
as
it.
I said, this game gives me such hard jitters that after like 3 or 4 days of playing, I'm like, okay, I need to go to my happy place and just chill for a while.
You gave me the pieces I needed. It's Ayona Cookery!
Oh, yeah, like the Futurama reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my best impression of the voice that comes up in the game. But yeah, it's fantastic. So you get invited as like a contestant on an Iron Chef show. It's pretty good.
It's madness in a game form, and it is glorious.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, we could always talk about the music in it, but I feel like we've already touched on that.
It's
at least
fantastic.
a number of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, insofar as we can talk about it, seeing as it comes from a bunch of different places.
Yeah, and it's like pop culture references of the time too. Like The Sims is pretty well represented in it, at least parts of it. I totally didn't make the Chicken Run connection until Devin pointed it out.
Yeah.
I never made that connection until you pointed it out. I cannot believe it.
Every time when you guys showed me the game for the first time, like when we were, I was just like, man, the song is so familiar, but I couldn't figure it out. And it just was like in the back of my head, just there. And then as I was like opening up the game to play it because we were going to talk about it, and I was like, okay, let's play this a little bit. And it kept coming up. And I was like, I know that I know this. And I like stopped playing and just sat and like brought the music into my mind, that rip, and it kept playing it over and over in my head. And then finally it occurred to me, I'm like, fucking Chicken Run.
When you,
It's when they're building the plane. It's when they're building the plane in Chicken Run.
yes, when you said that, I was like, that put a piece into place that has been missing in my mind for, when was this? Almost 20 years. Because that, when it came out, I was like, man, that music is so familiar. What is that?
Right?
Chicken Run's one of my favorite movies. I have no idea how I never made that connection until you. So congratulations. Because as soon as you said that, I was like,
It is.
that is what it is.
Yeah, and it had been a long time since I'd seen Chicken Run or listened to the soundtrack. So it was like, it was just there, but just the synapses weren't connecting. But then when they finally did, it was like, oh my God, it's when they're building the plane in Chicken Run.
Yep, I'm blown away that you put that together, and also so happy that you put that piece back together in my brain, because it's been bothering me for 20 years. Every time I put the game together.
Yeah, I
Well,
feel like this game just automatically puts me into a very specific mindset with the flubber stuff. So yeah.
oh yeah.
That one I knew.
Yeah.
That one I was like, as soon as that's, which is also one of my favorite movies. So like, whoever made this game, good taste. I'm just saying. Like, there's music from The Sims, one of my favorite games. And obviously those two pieces of music are from some of my favorite movies. Like, I don't disagree with any of the choices he made.
They are all great
Yes.
music choices.
Yeah, and the sound effects are just representative enough of what you're doing to really sell that you're doing something. Like the a patty going on is a and,
Yep.
and when you throw stuff into the fryer, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and it still makes that stuff like bubbly sound, which is just evocative enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The pouring sound when you do the beer, or the pouring sound with the soda machine.
Yeah. Or the tips sound effect when you actually
Yes.
get one.
Yep.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like a high-pitched ping, almost.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a coin falling onto some other coins.
Not Not really to me, but
Kind of.
I could see where that comes from.
I think
Yeah.
that's what it's meant to sound like. How about that?
Fair. Undoubtedly fair, but yeah, it doesn't really sound like it. It's kind of like how do you describe the Metal Gear Solid alert sound? That's, yeah,
Yeah.
very similar.
Uh-huh.
But when you say that, it's like, oh yeah, I know what that sound is, and then nobody can say it the same way.
Right.
It's fucking glorious. And that's how the tip sound is in this game. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this game in particular? I know this is going to be a little bit of a shorter game
Oh, yeah.
review because I mean, if you play more than 15 minutes of this game, you are going to be exhausted straight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It's a game that you enjoy in short stints.
I mean, I
So-
think when I got in trouble, I had been playing it for like 4 hours straight. So
Jesus. How did your heart handle that, dude?
I was
Well, he was young.
I was a teenager,
It's
yeah.
fine. You wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to do that today.
No.
You'd want to go. You'd want to go see a doctor about that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of memories on this one for me.
Yeah.
I guess we can wrap it up here. If you have any other thoughts about this game or any other games that you think we should investigate, absolutely reach out to us in our socials or put a comment in our comment section below this. We would love to hear from you. But that being said, let's go around and do socials. Where can they find you, Devin?
Well, you can occasionally find me on the Twitter at MEREWYRD at Merroward. I'm not usually there. I'm kind of on a socials hiatus, for reasons. But you could certainly find me there if you like. Any inquiries, contact editor Chandler.
Damn it.
Got to keep you
But-
working.
So much work. How about you, Tom?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube as Rusty Junk Tom, and there I mostly focus on non-video game related things, building cars, electric bicycles, etc. So, if that's something that's interesting to you, then you can find me there.
And people can find me on various social media outlets as at JCSirron, SIRRON, or leave a comment in the podcast comment section where you can find it at theadventuremechanics.com. We all do read the comments, even though we haven't had any yet, but we'd love to hear from you.
We theoretically read the comments.
Well, when we actually get a comment, you know I'm going to be spamming it.
I would certainly read the comments if I had any.
Exactly. Great, now I feel like I'm pressuring them.
You have to leave a comment. If you don't
No.
leave a comment,
Oh, you don't need to.
so help us.
Dinkelberg.
Okay, we're going off the rails again. Let's wrap this up before we go too far. This has been The Adventure Mechanics. I'm Chandler,
I'm Devin.
And I'm Tom.
and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
The intro and outro music are excerpts from Plinian, retro gaming version, royalty free. Music provided and produced by Lone Peak Music. Link in the description.